So we got through that in about 4 days. Awesome book, written in graphic novel form. If you're not the type of person who wants to sit there and read a big long book, and amazing. My favorite story out of the whole book was Kandahar Giant. So shout out to Mr. Ballin, hoping for a second book soon, and looking forward to what's coming out on your channel next. And also, I'm not a huge fan of like drinking, partying, getting drunk, but I do like a good beer. This is Pure Beer by Crystal Coast Brewing on Atlantic Beach here in North Carolina. It's a golden ale. It's like Blue Moon, Shock Top, that kind of stuff. So really great if you like beers. I bought it at Lowe's in a 4-pack. It's like $10. But anyway, let's get started. So today's story is going to be called Blood Ties. And this has to do with my own family. So the story basically starts with the house that we moved into in North Carolina in the city of Jacksonville. And my oldest daughter, Fallon, okay? My oldest daughter was born with a couple health problems. She's very, very intelligent, okay? And her name, Fallon, means flight and freedom in the Irish language. I come from an Irish family. Fallon was born very small. It was always hard to feed her. Even nowadays, she's 9 years old, but she does not like protein. She doesn't eat meat, things like that. We have to feed her very particularly. And Fallon also has some hearing issues. She's had to wear hearing aids and those kind of things. So she's my baby that has my health problems, but of course I have a very close bonded relationship with her. She's the one that loves the horror stories with me, watches Mr. Ballin's channel, all that kind of good stuff, right? So we share some deep connection with some things. When we moved into this house, my wife, who is very, let's just say, sensitive to the natures around her, started to feel very strange about this place. And actually, all of us in the family had started to feel some odd energy here. And this is a military town. There's a lot of old neighborhoods and old houses. Plus, we had known a little bit about the history of this house. It had been ransacked and destroyed by a hurricane before we got it. And there was just a lot of unknowns. We also live in a neighborhood that has a really massive funeral home pretty close to it. So I don't know if there's some energy that gets absorbed like into the neighborhood from what goes on there. But either way, we started to feel this major negative energy. The kids got really scared when we first moved here. They wouldn't sleep by themselves, couldn't barely get them to sleep through the night. They were going to school tired, all this other kind of stuff, right? And then even my wife one night was freaking out. She called me. I was working late and told me that she had walked into one of the children's rooms after hearing the child talk almost in a language in their sleep that didn't make sense. I hate to say it, almost like tongues. And that there was a big shadow of a tall man in the corner of the room. And it turned its head, reared its head at my wife, and then it disappeared. And our child was just laying in the bed asleep like nothing had happened. My wife woke up the child. The child had no idea what had just happened, and she took the kid to our room, woke up the other kids in their room, took them to our room, and basically laid in there awake watching over them, terrified of what was going on. So we had talked to a couple people that deal with these kind of situations, and they suggested saging and blessing the house, and we had done that. I said a couple prayers. I was raised Catholic. Just wanted things to settle down and be able to live in this home and feel okay and have our children feel okay. There was a couple other instances with this particular spirit that we felt, where it felt like it was watching us or, it was around, but it always went away very quickly. And the kids stopped having these conversations in their sleep. We stopped having frightening encounters and like getting the chills walking into different rooms and things like that. But my daughter Fallon, she would sit up on the edge of her bed. We could hear her outside her room, and she was having these conversations. And so we walked in, and finally one day I asked her, I said, "Baby, who are you talking to?" She told me, she says, "Oh, I'm talking to Cecilia." And this struck me because my great-grandmother, this woman right here, gorgeous, beautiful woman, she was very close to me in her life. That's her and my great-grandfather, who actually had fought in North Africa and Pearl Harbor. Very interesting stories. She was very close to me for the first year of my life before she passed away. She ended up dying of lung cancer, but I never really spoke to her much. My kids didn't know anything about her. And my daughter is sitting there talking about Cecilia. This is the only Cecilia in my family that I know. And having conversations with her. She said this woman would sit on her bed, comfort her, tell her it was okay. She would keep the bad things away. And that my daughter was beautiful, and she was proud to see that our family's lineage of beautiful women was continuing. And then this woman, my daughter said, asked her, "Is your dad okay? I'm glad he's doing good. You know, you're being watched over. It's okay." So at this point, I start to kind of shed a tear. I don't remember a lot of my grandma Cecilia. Like I said, she died when I was 1, but I was told when I was born she was practically detachable or undetachable from me. Just loved me. Always had to have me in her arms, was always just affectionate and caring towards me. And had even told my dad before she passed away, "Don't worry about your son, because I'm always going to look out for him. I'm always going to protect him. You know, this is my baby." There was a couple weird instances when I was a kid where my life did come into jeopardy. We can get into some of those stories later, and some weird things happened, and I ended up being okay. And a lot of people in my family believed that my great-grandmother was looking out for me. So I dug and rummaged through a bunch of things, couldn't find anything. I've got a lot of stuff in storage. I just think it was a lot to look through, so I contacted my family, contacted my dad, and asked for my pictures of my great-grandmother, and they showed up. And when I showed them to my daughter, I started talking to her about this. She pointed at this one, and she goes, "That's her. That's the woman who sits on my bed and comforts me and talks to me." And I was like, "It's your great-grandmother." And I started telling her everything about her, you know, the whole story, all this kind of stuff. And started talking to my dad about the situation, and my dad was like, "You know, she swore to protect you. In life and death, you were her baby, you know." And I think that protection from her spirit has passed down to your family. That's what's going on. She followed you to where you guys live now. She's in the house. She's protecting you from whatever this bad was in the house and comforting your children. And I also believe that my daughter might be a little bit sensitive to certain natures like my wife is, because my daughter can communicate with her. She can see her. She can talk to her. She knew things about my grandmother before I ever got the chance to tell her about her. So it's really interesting. And then the last part of the story that I thought was really, really wild is that my dad actually told me while we were having the conversation, "I got something else to tell you that I realized a while ago, but it's kind of strange, and I just never thought to bring it up, but with all the stuff going on, I want to bring it up." And I asked my dad, I said, "Well, what is it?" He goes, "So your daughter, you named her Fallon for the Irish word of flight and freedom." I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, your great-grandmother was a woman of the old world, and, you know, her mother, my great-great-grandmother, her name was Fallon as well." And that was just such an interesting coincidence, because I never knew my great-great-grandmother. I didn't know anything about her. Nobody had ever told me that. And of all the names and all the things to choose to name my daughter, who would eventually have the sensitivity and communication with my with my great-grandmother, it was so interesting that it would be the same name that her mother carried. So, not really a scary story to start the channel with, but something that was definitely interesting and spiritual, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you've ever had any kind of experiences like this, let me know. Let's talk about it. But anyway, like, subscribe, hit the bell notification, help us grow this channel. Thanks for watching Ghostly-Glitchez. I'm going to get my speech right here eventually. And I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you.